Well, good Thursday afternoon. This is 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dorzinski and Dan Lucero here with you. 2.5 hours of sports talk today. We're off a little bit early, 5:30 wrap-up time for the two of us today. We've got the Bat Cats in action coming up late this afternoon, early this evening. K-State baseball coming your way, 5:30 broadcast start time. So we've got 2.5 hours and plenty to get to. No show yesterday. That Royals game went really long.
It did. It didn't finish until after 6 o'clock. Turns out when there's all kinds of traffic on the bases and there are all kinds of walks and one team's having a bullpen game, so there are all kinds of pitching changes, that can take a game into the 3-hour stratosphere like the old days. But, hey, all's well that ends well. The Royals win the game. They win the series. They make Padres fans boo their team off the field, which I got to be honest with you. Nothing the Royals do this season is going to delight me more than that. Just as an avowed hater.
They're a disaster right now. They're losing, what is it, 9 of 11 games they've lost now?
They had to have a team meeting.
Never good. Never want to have the team meeting.
The closed-door clubhouse meeting. That's what losing 2 out of 3 to the Royals does to you. It plunges you into an existential crisis.
Was it a players-only meeting?
I believe it was.
Ooh, extra
the
bad.
Dreaded players only.
Do not want that one bit. So we'll talk a little Royals baseball coming up here. They took a series. The Padres are better than the Royals are, albeit they are playing terribly right now. So we'll talk about that. Also a post over at Royals Review about the things that are going right for the Royals right now. 3 things. We'll dive into that a little bit. Also this hour, we'll play our regular Thursday staple, either or over under. And Rick Peterson from TopSports.News is going to join us later on this hour for the Invista Credit Union High School whip around on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Got a full guest list today. We've got a football season type of guest list today. Thursday, just jam-packed. Fulton's going to stop by for some crosstalk top of the 4 o'clock hour. We haven't had crosstalk in like a month. Yeah. It has been a while.
It has.
So Fulton's going to swing by to chat with us at the top of the 4 o'clock hour. Tim Fitzgerald also going to stop in on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. We didn't get to our Wildcat wrap-up yesterday because, well, we didn't have a show. So instead, Fitz is going to join us today to talk all things Kansas State athletics. We'll also get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines, what is wrong with you, and we'll be done again today at 5:30. We'd love for you to be a part of the show. Jump on into the comment section on YouTube. The name of our YouTube channel is Sports on 580 WIBW, or you can hit us up on our text line. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. The Royals pick up 2 wins in 3 games against the Padres. Didn't think that was going to happen. Now, the Padres have been awful as of late, as we just outlined mere moments ago. And to be frank, after that Michael Wacha near no-hitter on what would that have been, Monday this week, I thought, yeah, this series ain't going to go well. We had the numbers on Tuesday's show. Here's how bad the Royals have been in their last 4 games. Here's what's gone wrong. They can't hit, they can't pitch, they're walking the whole ballpark, etc. Well, the walking thing didn't really change. They walked 9+ batters for the second time in a week. Was that in yesterday's game? Yeah. That's not great, but other than that, they were tough. They were gritty. That was a game that took over 3 hours and yet was only 4-3. And bullpen got it done. They pitched well overall. Offense made it happen when they needed to. 2 wins in a row. They pick up a second series win in 3 series. I mean, things aren't good, but you're feeling a little bit better about where this team is. It was good to see a tough, gritty win.
Yeah, give them credit. The bullpen game went as well as it could possibly have gone yesterday. Carlos Hernandez set a tone, pitched well early. Mike Myers was second in line, his Royals debut, and he pitched out of a tough spot in, I think it was the 4th inning, left the bases loaded. And then the back end of the bullpen did what they've done. Aroldis Chapman had to pitch himself out of trouble, working on the 2nd straight consecutive day, which has kind of been his Achilles heel, but he managed to keep the Royals in front. Taylor Clark threw it well. Scott Barlow did the job in the 9th. So credit the pitching staff. That's still like a really good lineup. I know it's underperforming right now, and the guys who are underachieving are really underachieving that lineup. Austin Nola's hitting like 151. They've got some holes in that lineup, and I know Manny Machado broke a bone in his hand and didn't play in the final 2 games of the series. So a little less potent than that, but still, Juan Soto's in that lineup. Xander Bogaerts is in that lineup. Fernando Tatis Jr. is in that lineup. Like, they've got some hitters. They got some guys who will make you pay. And the Royals did well over the last 2 games to keep that lineup in check, and then did enough offensively on the other side to pull out a couple of games. And it always feels good to win a series. You never take a road series win for granted, no matter who you are or who your opponent is. And for the Royals to do that, yeah, they get to carry their heads high on the flight to Chicago.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about that. You saw, is it Myers?
It's Myers.
It is Myers. Okay.
Yeah.
You saw him get through a little bit of a jam, work it out. At this point, you're taking anything positive you can get and seeing some toughness from him. You like to see that. Just overall, I mean, when you talk about how wins and losses don't matter, which I know I have plenty, you get to a point where, okay, so you're flippant about when you lose. Why aren't you flippant about when they win? I thought that they really didn't matter. You can still be excited about it. You can still be happy that they ended up winning a game. Now they get a day off. They get to go take on another struggling team who they just took a series from in the Chicago White Sox, who are down 2-1 right now. Is it still 2-1? I'm pulling up the scoreboard right now. No, they're down 3-1. It was 1-1 in the 7th inning. They got a ground ball with 2 outs, and then Tim Anderson booted it. And, well,
he might have booted it.
Yeah,
too.
he might have done that too. And now Cleveland is up 3-1 on the White Sox.
Allowing Cleveland to score 3 runs is like allowing a better team to score like a dozen runs.
This is what we were talking about the other day. The division sucks. It is so bad.
It's not good. No.
Everybody in the entire division is bad. So the Royals get a much-needed day off, a nice breather, a well-earned day off is maybe the best way to put it. And they will take on the White Sox starting up tomorrow. I saw this earlier today over at Royals Review, and it was a list. Who wrote this? Matthew Lamar is the writer of this list. It is 3 things that right now are going well for the Royals, things that are a positive, a good thing, a unanimous positive thing. First one, and we've touched on this a lot. I know you've brought up a bunch of the stats on this before. Bob Witt's fielding has gotten so much better. And you can see now more clearly why the Royals have been insistent, no, he is a shortstop. Because we talked a lot about, well, maybe he's a better third baseman. Maybe that is where his future is. He's got the projected bat to play a corner infield spot. Maybe the defense plays a little bit there. He's been so much better defensively. And even if you don't know a whole lot about the really advanced defensive numbers, I think those are kind of harder to grasp than if you're, new to analytical analysis of baseball or whatever. I think it's a little harder to grasp these like abstract defensive numbers than like, oh, well, batting average on balls in play. Okay, well, how often do you get a hit when you put the ball in play? That's pretty simple.
I can explain that stat to you on an elevator. Range factor and ultimate zone rating, it better be a really long elevator ride.
Yeah. Essentially, defensive runs saved. I love that one. This one pops up, I see all the time on Twitter or just in conversations with people,
right.
Like, oh, he got an outfield assist at home plate. That's a defensive run save. Well, yes, but no, like that's not really what that means.
The Rockies broadcast crew legitimately, I think, thinks what that means.
Yeah. Maybe it was the Rockies. I heard that on a TV broadcast, and I think Analytics Twitter was making fun of it last year.
Definitely the Rockies.
It might have been
100% Drew Goodman.
Drew Goodman. But essentially, a lot of those stats, you just want a bigger number. The bigger the number, the better you are. So you look at defensive runs saved. Last year, Bob Witt was a negative 18. That's bad. Okay, that's not good. Usually, if you're hovering around 0, you're mediocre, low end of mediocre. This year, he's at -1, which isn't great, but that's an improvement.
Dramatic improvement.
170% or something like that. Like it's a massive improvement. Ultimate zone rating. I don't know what that means. Okay, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I know it's good to have a number way above 0. I don't actually know like how they determine it. Last year, -6.5. Bad, way below 0. This year, -0.3. Again, still in that mediocre range, but mediocre is a lot better than, wow, you're bad at this. Like, wow, that you're terrible. No, he's done way better. And if you can go from that bad to mediocre in effectively 1 year, less than a year, really, that incorporated all of last season, you can again see the vision for him being a full-term shortstop as opposed to, well, maybe he's a third baseman or maybe he's a part-time DH or whatever. No, you can see the vision here.
you can see what he's really good at defensively. Really good at going back on the balls that are in shallow right or shallow left, shallow center, those pop-ups that get into what they call no man's land. Bobby Witt Jr. goes and gets those. And he gets those probably at a higher rate than a lot of shortstops. He's really proficient. He's made some absolute highlight reel plays on some balls, making over-the-shoulder catches this year. That's certainly going to help your ultimate zone rating, your defensive run saves. That's the kind of thing that's going to create a spike in those numbers. I think he has improved a good deal going to his right, making the play on the backhand side, throwing off balance, throwing from the hole. He's got a great arm, like an elite top of the scale throwing arm for the shortstop position. So he should be able to turn those balls deep in a hole into outs more often than the average shortstop, because essentially that is what these defensive stats are measuring. It's not like we said, it's not a hard counting number of, oh, he made a spectacular play when there were 2 outs and a runner on third, so that's a run saved. Essentially, it's determining what happens on average when a ball hit a hit type, hit velocity, where it is on the field. How often does that turn into an out by the shortstop? And if you're doing it more, if you make that play and the average shortstop doesn't, then that's where you get the credit. And that's where you see an increase in those numbers. And when you don't make a play in an area where a shortstop would typically be expected to make the play, then you lose credit. You lose a score, I guess, in those numbers. That's the simplest way I can come up with. Like I'm not going to give you the formula, but that's the simplest way I can think of to describe what these stats do and how they're figured.
And that part of it is using that athleticism, using that skill, but also, I mean, that's experience. That's just baseball IQ, right? Is being able to make the right play, take the right angle, because angles are not just an outfielder thing. They're an infielder thing too. Being in the right position more often. I mean, these are things that you would hope that your superstar prospect would be able to do. And it's good to see him doing it.
Yeah. And there's still room for improvement for him defensively. I think the ball's going up the middle, making that throw is still kind of something that he struggles with. Balls to his left, I think his range is better to the backhand side. I don't think that's an uncommon thing for shortstops, but I feel like he can get better on those plays in particular. I saw somebody on Twitter, and I don't remember who it was, compare Witt's defense to Derek Jeter. And how you react to that will tell me a lot about the kind of baseball fan you are, whether you think, oh man, what a complimenter. Oh, wow, that's rude. Because Derek Jeter won, I think, 5 or 6 Gold Gloves. Those advanced numbers weren't always kind of Derek Jeter in his career, because Jeter was really good at that play to his backhand side. When we think about Jeter defensively, what do we think about? The jump throw, right? The jump throw deep in the hole. Or we think about him making plays on those over-the-shoulder catches, like the time he unnecessarily ran and face planted into the seats at Yankee Stadium against the Red Sox. So
5 Gold Gloves, by the way.
Yeah, 5 Gold Gloves. And then if you look at the advanced numbers for Jeter, they're not as kind. Like ultimate zone rating, defensive run save, they never really were fond of Jeter over the course of his career, because he did have some weaknesses and he could not get to his left. Like especially by the time he got to his 30s, forget about it. He couldn't get to his left whatsoever, to the point where people joked that his nickname should have been Pass to Diving, as in that ball is pass to diving Jeter into center field for a base hit. So some of the strengths are similar for Bobby Witt Jr. And if that's the outcome, that he is a Derek Jeter type of defender, maybe that's not something the advanced stats are going to love. And maybe he's not going to win 5 Gold Gloves because he's not the captain of the New York Yankees. But like, think about watching Derek Jeter play. Think about watching the plays he could make, is particularly in his prime, in his youth, when the Yankees were winning world championships. Like, that's a pretty good outcome. You take that. And I think that I thought that was a really interesting point. I wish I'd liked the tweet so I could go back and I could give credit to whoever it was that said it. Might have been Randy Gisarelli, might have been Mike Petrello, the StatCast guy from MLB.com. I don't remember who. And I think Petrello has said he's going to do a deeper dive into Witt's defense and what particularly has gotten better for him, which I'll be interested to see when that eventually comes out. But it is visible improvement, and there's still some work to be done, but that has been extremely encouraging, that despite the fact that he's maybe not as productive offensively so far to this point as he was as a rookie, he's more valuable because his shortstop defense has turned a corner.
For what it's worth, the numbers for Jeter were, in fact, quite unkind to him defensively. A lot of those metrics looked like they started in 2002, according to Fangraphs. A lot of negative numbers for Derek Jeter. But hey, if you can be better than that. And again, perception is reality to a lot of people, and there is certainly some value to that. The other positives from this piece over at Royals Review about the good things for the Royals right now. One's an obvious one. The bullpen improving value, the trade chips specifically improving value. Obviously, they want Aroldis Chapman to get moved. That's a positive thing. If Scott Barlow is pitching well, that is obviously a good thing. They've been good as of late. Chapman has been for the entire season at this point. That's good. We've taken a deep dive into that plenty. The other one in here that I found to be interesting, overall pitching staff, strikeout and walk rates have been improved. Which sounds crazy because how much time have we spent in the last week talking about, oh my God, throw a strike, specifically when it comes to one pitcher in particular.
Mostly when it comes to Brad Keller.
So the overall team numbers, not great. Royals have the third worst team ERA and the fifth worst fielding independent pitching. It's not great. But overall, they're seeing improved numbers both in terms of strikeout rate and in terms of walk rate, generally speaking, anyway. So they've broken down here at Royals Review strikeout rate, walk rate for 9 different pitchers from last year to this year, as well as the strikeout to walk ratio, essentially. Start with a couple bullpen guys. Josh Stallman, 12% better in strikeout to walk rate this year compared to last year, 20% to 8%. Striking out guys more often while walking guys less often. You just want to look at his strikeouts. 31% of his batter space have been struck out this year, less than 25% a year ago. That's pretty good. Amir Garrett this year, pretty much the same as last season. His walk rate has actually gone has gone down 3%. His strikeout rate has gone a little bit down from last year. Scott Barlow, he's striking out 34% of the guys he's facing. He's been better. Taylor Clark, he's been doing a better job. Now he's walking guys way more often, but strikeouts have been better.
Yeah, strikeout rate's up almost 10%. Carlos Hernandez, strikeout rate up almost 15%. Now, different role for him, so you have to contextualize that, but he is making guys miss at a high level. Jose Cuas, same thing. Coming out of the bullpen, the strikeout rates, the percentages are much higher for those guys. And it kind of calls to mind last year, and we made fun of Dayton Moore for saying this, in defense of Cal Eldred, when the Royals pitching staff was quite obviously bad. Like it was in really rough shape. And I want to say it was around this time last year. It was around mid-May, late May, when Dayton Moore essentially said, well, if you're going to knock Cal Eldred for guys struggling, you have to give him credit for Daniel Lynch. It's like, okay, well, that's one guy. And it's great that Daniel Lynch at the time had a couple of good starts in a row. Of course, he ended up not having great numbers for the season either. But that's one guy. Like it's got to be, the staff has to be performing well. So now it's kind of the reverse situation. Yeah, if you want to knock Brian Sweeney because Brad Keller can't find the strike zone right now, that's fair. But there's a lot more success in terms of the process of walking more guys, having a better strikeout to walk ratio, being in better shape in those categories. There's a lot more success stories than there are stories of guys who are struggling. And that's the way it works.
Yep.
Or that's in an ideal world, that's the way you want it to work.
Right. Then you take a look at the starting staff. Now, obviously, Chris Bubich, done for the year. That story really sucks. He was doing a way better job. In the few starts he had, he was walking fewer than 3% of the batters he was facing. That was down from over 10% a year ago. Zach Greinke has improved. He was only walking about 4.5% of his batters last year. About 3.5%. Greinke has been hitting the zone more, throwing more strikes, walking fewer guys, and striking more out. Now, he doesn't strike out many guys, period, but he's even improved there, teaching an old dog new tricks. Then there's the two other guys. We probably know where this is going with Brady Singer and with Brad Keller. Singer this year, striking out guys 5 percentage points less than last year, walking them a little bit more. Not a huge difference in walks. That is a sizable difference in strikeouts. And I think that's been a major issue, and we've talked about it for Singer, is not being able to put guys away, getting ahead in a count and then losing.
Yeah, like I think he's actually done pretty well when he gets to 2 strikes, but it's hard to get to a 2-strike count when you start 1-0, 2-0 as often as Singer has. So I think that number's going to bounce back. I do. I think as his command gets sharper, we've seen the last couple of starts, some steps in the right direction for him. I think that number's going to tick back up.
And then the last one is Brad Keller.
We've said enough, haven't we?
His strikeout rate is almost the same. It's pretty similar. Last year, and I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you, just over 9% of the batters he faced, he walked. This year, it's just a tick under 20%. 1 of every 5 batters who faces Brad Keller is getting a base on balls. I mean, you're right. We've said all there really is to say, but good Lord, man, that is terrible.
Yeah,
That's
really bad.
Absolutely dreadful. But overall, you listen to all those positives. We gave you 9 pitchers right there. 7 of them have improved from a year ago, and we've been over many times the issues with the other ones. So there are some things to be optimistic about. The win total might not be one of them, but there are at least some things that you can point to and say, all right, we're seeing improvement with this team. No Royals baseball today. They'll be back in action tomorrow when they start a series in Chicago on the south side against the White Sox. We'll obviously talk about that coming up on tomorrow's show.
I want to get to the text line real quick to dunk on the Padres one more time before we're done with them.
Yes.
And they're beyond us for the season. From the 785, the Bard with a limerick about the Padres. You Padres have base running issues. Keep it up. The playoffs will miss you. Run yourself out of innings. You lose instead of winning. The fans are in dire need of tissues. Got them. Take that, you bunch of losers.
Well done. As always, very well done.
Also from the 785, a comment regarding Bobby Witt Jr. He was shocked earlier today when he heard a critique on Bobby Witt Jr. from last year and how much he's improved this year. Was he looked at as a Gold Glove talent coming in? I think that was kind of thought of as the upside.
Yeah.
That with the tools, he could potentially be that. And then, obviously have a big enough bat. Like, and I've said this before, even if he's never a 300 hitter, or even if his on-base percentage resembles prime Salvador Perez more so than what we're getting from Vinny Pasquantino generally, he can still be a really valuable player if the power and the speed and the defense at shortstop are what they were projected to be. Even if he's a 250 hitter instead of a 280 hitter or 290 hitter, which I would be surprised given his speed and given his exit velocities if long-term this is who Bobby Witt is as a hitter. I would be really, really surprised if there's not more growth for him coming. But even if there isn't, if he's this kind of defender moving forward and the pop is still there and the base running ability, the speed is still there, then you've got a pretty darn valuable player at the 6.
We're going to take our first break here on 580 Sports Talk. Keep sending your texts in, 785-272-9429. And you can keep leaving us comments as well on our YouTube live stream on our channel Sports on 580 WIBW. On the other side of this timeout, we'll play some either or over under. And later on this hour, Rick Peterson's going to join us for the Invista Credit Union High School Whip Around. It's all coming up this hour of 580 Sports Talk. and Dan here with you on 580 Sports Talk. Slightly shortened edition of the show today from 3 until 5:30. We're off early for the Batcats today. Rick Peterson will join us later on this hour for our Invista Credit Union High School whip around. But right now, a little either or over under. Eric Eager, friend of the show, friend of Mic'd Up as well from Sumer Sports. He put out a ranking today on Twitter of all 5 years of Patrick Mahomes as a starter. The ranking of the Chiefs teams. He phrased it, Mahomes Chiefs teams ranked. He went 2020 as the best one. That team lost in the Super Bowl. 2022, they just won a Super Bowl. Then 2019, another Super Bowl winner. 2021, lost to the Bengals in the AFC title game. And then his first year as a starter, 2018, ranked 5th. So I will give you just the 2 Super Bowl winners. 2022's Chiefs or 2019's Chiefs? Which one was better?
I think 2022's Chiefs. That, 2019 might have had like more offensive skill talent.
Yeah, I would say so.
But I think 2022 had more defensive depth. And I think the 2022 Chiefs had more ways they could beat you. Because it's like Mahomes keeps evolving into a better version of himself every season. Like it's a fun thought exercise because I think 2018 Chiefs had the best offense of any of those 5 teams. They just also had the worst defense.
Yes, by a lot.
I don't know that I agree that 2020 was the best Chiefs team. Maybe it's just the way that ended and the fact that they were down to bouncers and Mike Remmers playing offensive line in the Super Bowl maybe colors my memory of that season a little bit. They were great, don't get me wrong, but I don't know that I can take a group of 5 teams and say 2 of these won the Super Bowl and rank one that didn't above the 2 that did. I don't know I can do that. So really it is between 2019 and 2022 for me. And while I think 2019 had the better skill position talent, I think there was more defensive depth, more pass rush depth on the 2022 team. I would take that. That might be recency bias. I'll admit, but I think I might take the 2022 team.
Mahomes was better in 22 than in 19. I mean, he was obviously great in 2019, but I think we got closer to what peak top of the mountain Mahomes is this year than we did in 2019 when they ended up winning the Super Bowl. Defensive depth, I would agree with that. Steven Ruiz from The Ringer responded to this as well. He pointed out the 2019 Chiefs defense, though, by the end of that season and into the playoffs was really good.
It was.
Like, it wasn't just, dang, they're playing well. No, it was a legitimately good unit by that time. So I think the defenses are fairly similar. I think you probably give a point to the fact that, the 49ers were playing well, but the Chiefs beat a better team in 2022 than they did in 2019 to win the Super Bowl.
They did. They beat a better quarterback.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I would lean 2022. I would give it a slight lean. I'd go 22, 19, 20. I would go 18 over 21. I know 2018's defense was dreadful, but we spent so much time during 2021, even when they went on that big, long winning streak, saying something's up. Like, something about this team just feels like it's more fragile
it's probably
than it has before.
Probably the least awesome they were in November and December.
Yeah, there was less like, oh, yeah, there's going to beat your brains in. Like, you just didn't have that feeling.
I think that's fair because, gosh, 2018's defense was just rancid, dookie water, but holy crap, that offense.
Yeah, it was untouchable.
I think that might be just because of the newness, the freshness of it, the youth of everyone involved. That might always be the best offense Patrick Mahomes ever plays in.
Oh, it's certainly possible, which is almost unfair that it came first, right. But I understand that.
So my either or today, we're going to get into this a little bit more in the playoff roundup. But this is an existential, like, broader sports question, not a specific example.
Okay.
Would you rather have, going into a playoff scenario, a significant talent advantage, but a coaching disadvantage, or a significant coaching advantage, but a talent disadvantage?
I understand this is a wide-ranging question, but is this in reaction to watching the Heat and the Celtics last night?
Absolutely 100%. Like I said, we'll get into it more in the playoff roundup later
on. I think, man, that's a great question. I feel like there's a third element of this, and I know I'm totally trying to screw the whole point of this up. I feel like there is an element of, like, chemistry or toughness or grittiness that also comes into the equation which I guess I would factor into the coaching side of things, I would probably lean with that. Like, you need good players to win.
Yeah, players play, right?
But, man, like last night is a great example of that. And I think of, how much coaching makes a difference. Joe Mazzulla is over here, like, binging Netflix before games. Eric Spoelstra has been one of the best coaches in basketball for over a decade at this point. I think I'd rather have the coaching advantage. That is more so, I think, why the Warriors won last year, as opposed to, it's Steph being Steph and Clay's at his peak or all that. Like, I think it was more so Steve Kerr led them more in that championship than he had in their previous three. So I think I would take the coaching and the intangible advantage.
I think it is easier to overcome a slight talent disadvantage if you have a significant coaching advantage, but I think it's tougher to overcome a significant talent disadvantage if you only have a slight coaching advantage. I would take the significant talent advantage, but if the talent is really close, then I would, then the coaching can tip it. Who was it? It was Bum Phillips that said, they say he said it about both Don Shula and Bear Bryant. They could take his and beat yours, and he could take yours and beat his. Like, there are but a handful of coaches historically that would create that much of a disadvantage or an advantage on the sideline. So I would still say, if you're offering me the chance to have a significant edge in one of the two, I would probably still say the talent. But if everything is equal, if talent is equal, give me the coaching advantage. And if there's a slight talent advantage, then I might think coaching could play a role in that too. But there's a point where the talent is too much.
No, that's entirely fair. I think of the phrase we hear all the time during the NCAA tournament, probably because Bill Self says it multiple times every year. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, right? We hear that from him specifically all the time. The game that comes to mind is we were there, 2018 Elite Eight, Kansas versus Duke. That Duke team was more talented than KU was. They were. But Marvin Bagley also decided that he was done with college basketball at halftime. He's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm not really gonna play anymore. And KU was tough, and KU won that game. KU's won a lot of games like that, in fact. Like, I think you get a similar thing at the professional level, too. So, yeah, I mean, if you've got a wide gap, you side with that. But if they're marginally different, I would take the tougher team. I think I always would. We'll get to more of that in the playoff roundup, as Dan said. Right now, we have to get to a break. Rick Peterson joins us next on 580 Sports Talk.
I'm Jim.
In just a matter of moments, we will be chatting with Rick Peterson from TopSports.news for the Invista Credit Union High School Whip Around. Pistol joins us every single Thursday when we're on the air, not off for Royals baseball, at this time to talk all things high school sports. You can find him on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. And of course, you can go find his great work covering all of our local teams over at TopSports.news. We've got Pistol on the line. What's going on, Pistol? How are you?
Oh, just relaxing on my deck right now, but not for long.
Hey, that's what we like to hear. Enjoying the good weather, I assume?
Yeah, and I got soccer tonight, and it's going to be nice to have some pleasant weather.
Love that. Well, let's talk a little soccer tonight then. What's the action on the docket for you?
I'm at Washburn Rural for Washburn Rural and Derby, two very good teams, and it should be a good match to see who moves on to the 6A quarterfinal.
Yeah, and Rural playing phenomenal soccer as of late, including, how about a 10-0 win over Wichita South? Was that last night or the night before? They're cruising right now, Pistol. And I imagine, I always ask you these kind of questions, and I know Rural is always in this kind of position, but as much as they've come up short and it's been tough these last couple of years, I imagine this is a team on a mission of sorts to finally come away with another championship, get down to state this year, and make some noise after a couple of relatively disappointing finishes for their standards.
Well, I just think that's always the mission for them to be challenged for a state title. And they know how good particularly the teams in the East are. So they, when they can, I think it's always a goal to get to the Final Four. And if they get to the Final Four, then they'll take their chances. And I think that's what they're looking for again this year. They need to kind of step up their offense and score a little more. And if they can do that, I think they can play with anybody.
Other teams in the on the soccer landscape we should be keeping an eye on for, Pistols. We approach the the official part of the state tournament. We get down to the Final 8, the Final 4, etc. What other things should we be following in the area and really around the whole region?
Well, Seaman has a marquee matchup tonight. They're at home, but they have an extremely tough draw against St. Thomas Aquinas, which is notably the king and queen of state soccer. I don't even know how many titles they have now. And so that's going to be a tough draw for Seaman, but Seaman's playing great. And especially at home, I think they definitely have a shot. And then Hayden's on the road at Rose Hill. I saw them the other night. There again, they've played well. They've played really tough competition, including rural. And I think they're always a team, no matter what their record is, and they do have a good record this year, but no matter what their record is, they can be in the hunt in 4A, 1A.
We're chatting with Rick Peterson from TopSports.news. It's the Invista Credit Union High School Whip Around here on 580 Sports Talk. Go follow Pistol on Twitter. His handle is at Peterson_Rick. And of course, go check out TopSports.news for all the best coverage of our prep teams around the city and the county, as well as Washburn sports too. Moving on to softball, Pistol, as we are inching closer to state. In fact, we are just a week away from the start of the state tournament. Want to start with 5A. We'll get to 6A in a moment. Their full bracket's not out yet. The full bracket is out for 5A, though. Shawnee Heights going back to state. They are the 8 seed. They will take on Bishop Carroll coming up 1 week from today. What does that matchup look like, and what do you make of this 5A bracket for softball?
Well, first of all, it's a great achievement for Shawnee Heights to make it to state after a brief 1-year absence. Because they were the dominant team there for a long time. I mean, they won 3 in a row and finished second in that first before the 3 in a row. So they've been really, really good. They didn't make it last year. So for them to get back with a relatively very young team, I think is a great accomplishment. Bishop Carroll seems like they're there every year. They've had multiple titles of their own, and it's a tough matchup. But I think Tara Griffith and the T-Birds knew they were going to have kind of a low seed, so I think they're ready for whoever they draw.
From Class 6A, we know Washburn Rural is heading back. Again, you want to talk about a team that just is always there. Washburn Rural heading back to state 6A tournament in Lawrence at Rock Chalk Park, or near Rock Chalk Park anyway. Meanwhile, Topeka High, after a couple of state championships, they were bounced out early. They will not be heading to state this year. What do you make of the 6A field, Pistol?
Well, 6A field's going to be, I think, very even. And I think I was actually talking to Shane Miles of Topeka High last night, and we were just talking about it a little bit. And I think there's about 4 teams in my mind that really, if they get on a streak for 3 games, they win it. So, and I think Washburn Rural is one of those. To just talk about Topeka High, though, I think for what they lost, led by Nigel Kennedy, they had a very good year. You would have thought it was a rebuilding year. They still were competitive. They had to fight through some injuries, and I don't think we've seen the last of Topeka High. I think they'll be back as a contender.
No, I would agree with that. And I know I've asked you before, Pistol, but have you seen Nigel Kennedy's stats recently? Have you seen some of her production at Stanford? It's incredible.
Yeah. I've talked to some people about that, including some people that she played against, and they said, we knew she was good, and we didn't know she was that good. And I think that's where I'd put myself. I knew she was going to have a great career. Did I know she was going to be like a couple of no-hitters right out of the chute, like 0.29 ERA? No, I didn't know that.
Pistol, I got to admit, I remember talking to you during Nija's freshman year basketball season and watching her do what she did. And I remember you telling me, she's a better softball player. And I have to admit, I had to keep from rolling my eyes a little bit because she's out there putting up 20 and 20 doubles as a freshman in basketball. I said, how can she be better at anything than she appears to be at this? And as usual, Pistol, you were on the nose. Speaking of Topeka High, Pistol, their baseball team is headed to state in Class 6A. First time in many, many years that has been the case.
We don't even know how long. It's a long time when you don't know how long it's been. We're thinking early 60s because they played and then discontinued the program, and then they came back with basically everybody else, when everybody else in the city came back. But we're thinking maybe the early 60s. The guy I need to get a hold of, and I don't know how easy that would be Mike Torres, because he was at Topeka High in the late 50s, and he could probably give me some insight. But I think there's some people that are looking for that, and hopefully by early next week or late this week we'll know. But I'm guessing 60 years, and there was so much excitement last night, and they had a huge crowd at Hummer, and they just took care of business. And I'm very, very happy for anybody that gets to experience state, because in my mind, that's it. I mean, that's the ultimate, just to get to go to state. And then if you win it, that's a whole nother level.
3 straight winning seasons for Topeka High baseball, culminating in this trip to state, Pistol. And it's a sport where you look at the 6A brackets over the years. That's a sport typically that's the domain of the suburban schools, if you will, and not so much the city schools. So what has Topeka High done? How have they managed to be successful, turn that program around, get it winning, and get it back to state?
Well, first of all, I think Cody Miller works very hard at it. He's a young coach with a lot of energy. And I think when he started out, he was like, okay, we're going to take a little bit of steps every year. We're going to get better and better, which is exactly what they've done. And they still got I think they only have 4 seniors. And so they're going to continue to be good too. But I think they've just, it sounds like a cliche, but if you're going to be successful, you build a program. You just don't come in and inherit a program. You got to build a program, and I think that's what Topeka High has done.
Couple more minutes with Rick Peterson from TopSports.News. It's the Invista Credit Union High School whip around here on 580 Sports Talk. Pistol joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. You can find him on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. All right, Pistol, we are getting closer and closer to the start of state track coming up next weekend. Obviously, we'll do a full preview of that coming up next week. But as we wind down the initial part of the season, the pre-state part of the season, what's caught your eye? We'll start on the boys' side from track over these last couple of weeks.
Well, obviously, Lenny Naroje is very good for Topeka West. Jackson Esquivel is very good for Shawnee Heights in the distance. Jeremiah Smith is back for Shawnee Heights. The fastest 100 meters guy in state history.
Yep.
That has to be something you look at. Hayden's got a very good mile relay. Jake Muller is one of the state's premier intermediate hurdlers. On the girls' side, Bethany Drews is going to be going for another state title. Washburn Rural has good distance runners. Tell you, Elijah Brooks of Topeka West has really impressed me, particularly in the 200 and 400. So I think I'll have plenty to do down there next week. I just informed my wife a few minutes ago that I would be gone from Thursday on next week. So it'll be busy. Business will be picking up down in Wichita.
Did she respond to that positively or negatively, Pistol?
I'm not sure. When there's chores to be done, negatively. Get rid of me for a couple of days, maybe positively. So it's probably 50-50.
No, I feel that 100%. Hey, Pistol, one last thing before we go. We got to talk about some state champions. How about the Cusick brothers from Topeka West? Again, we're going to hope to get them on the show next week to talk about a second straight championship. But, man, what a run for Topeka West boys tennis, and what a run for the Cusick brothers.
Well, a couple things. One, the Cusick twins, they had lost to that team 3 times this year. Had to face them, the O'Donnells, on their home court and find a way to win. And in 2 straight sets. That's very good. Topeka West wins its first ever boys state team title. And the thing that impresses me most, first of all, Kurt Davis is one of the absolute best coaches in the state, but also all 6 of their team, varsity team, is in the National Honor Society, including Carter Cool, who was the valedictorian. I'm not sure how often you see that from a team in any sport.
No, that is absolutely incredible. We're going to hope to get some of the folks from Topeka West Tennis, including the Cusicks, on next week to talk about their championships. Every single week on Thursdays at the bottom of the 3 o'clock hour, we talk to Rick Peterson from TopSports.news on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for the Invista Credit Union High School Whip Round. Go follow Pistol on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. He'll be out at some soccer tonight. And of course, go check out TopSports.news for all the best coverage of prep sports throughout Topeka and Shawnee County. Pistol, we appreciate the time. Thank you so much. Looking forward to next week as we get to talk a whole lot more state activities as the spring seasons wrap up.
I'll be ready. It's a fun week next week.
It absolutely is. That is Rick Peterson from TopSports.news, the absolute best in the business. Nobody covers prep sports better. The soon-to-be Hall of Famer, Rick Peterson, joining us for the Invista Credit Union High School Whip Around. That does it for the 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. We've got our national and local news coming up here at the top of the hour. Leading off at 4 o'clock, Fulton Caster's going to swing by for our first crosstalk in I don't even know how long. Then we've got some What Is Wrong With You coming up next hour as well, and a day-late edition of our Azure Credit Union Wildcat Wrap-Up with Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com. He'll stop by. We've got plenty to talk about from the transfer portal. We'll be talking some football as well. Little Chris Kleiman, now that deal has been officially made official for the Wildcats. All that and more is coming up next hour, plus your texts and your YouTube comments. It's all still to come on 580 Sports Talk.
When you cut your finger,
Sports Talk, just getting started. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero here with you. Slightly shortened edition of the show today. We will be off at 5:30 for a little K-State baseball. Batcats in action coming up tonight as they get closer and closer to the NCAA tournament. Hopefully they'll be getting in the NCAA tournament. We'll find out if they can get any closer with a win tonight. That's coming up 5:30 broadcast start time right here on 580 WIBW. If you missed any of the first hour of the show, head to our website, 580WIBW.com. Go to the podcasts tab, click on 580 Sports Talk. That's where you'll find the hour-by-hour edition of the show in podcast form. And you can, of course, head to YouTube. Sports on 580 WIBW is the name of our channel. You can go hop in and watch the live stream. You can rewind the live stream. Go watch anything that has already taken place. Go watch anything from our back catalog of shows, other videos, etc. That is all on our YouTube. We've got What Is Wrong With You coming up in a little bit. We've also got Tim Fitzgerald joining us this hour on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. But right now joining us in studio, co-host of Mic'd Up with Jake and Fulton, he is Fulton Caster. You can find him on Twitter at Fulton Caster. You can also hear his sultry voice noon to 3 every weekday on Mic'd Up. Not tomorrow, though. You're off tomorrow.
No, yeah, I'm taking a rare off day tomorrow, so it'll be just Jake LeBond coming up tomorrow.
No, speak now or forever hold your peace before the weekend. Whatever you got, let it out.
Yeah, anything you have to drop right now. Are you taking a trip or just
a good friend of
sick day?
A good friend of mine is getting married in Wichita on Saturday, so I'm taking a rare opportunity, take an extra day off, go back home a little bit early. Just take it easy for an extra day. So nothing big planned for tomorrow. Tomorrow is just a rare. Fulton gets to kick back and relax a little bit. Probably take care, just hang out a little bit, see some friends, and then Saturday I have a wedding to go to.
I have a great picture on my phone from Dan's wedding of Fulton with 2 Bud Light cans in one hand.
I think it actually might have been 3.
Was it 3? Oh, I
have the picture as well.
Yeah.
3 in one hand.
Yeah, great picture.
3 in one hand?
I think.
Were you Johnny Bench?
It really is great. I'm going to go find this now.
I'm hunting this down too.
Big smile. He's cheesing. We're all having a good time at the wedding. And
Dan's wedding was an absolute great time.
Yeah, there's 3. There's 3 in his hand. Let's see if you're on YouTube. I'll put it on the camera right now. He's got 3 in his hand right there. Yeah.
Yeah, I can confirm that is 3.
Wow.
Dude is having a good time.
He's having a good part.
We're all having a good time.
I will say, I think 2 of those were mine. I think one of those was Jake's. I'm not confident.
That might have been true.
They were empties that I was about to take away. And in the process, Brendan stopped me for a photo op. And I think one of those might have been Jake's. 2 of those are 100% mine, though. And it might have been all 3.
This was my wedding?
Yeah, that was your wedding.
And I'm just now seeing this picture for the first time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You probably wouldn't have seen it because I sent it to, I was like, hey, Fulton, look at this. After the wedding. So, yeah, no, that probably would have been the first time I saw it.
Yeah, I'd never seen that before.
I'll send that to you, too. Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Good one.
Good memory for that night.
That was, I was busy that night.
You were a little preoccupied.
A little bit. One picture of me from my wedding is when someone requested that our DJ play The Hum, the song KU plays at Allen Fieldhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Great time.
Before at the under 4 media timeout, and me like fist pumping I'm on the Jersey Shore.
That was a top tier moment.
Yeah, I was hyped
in my life.
I was pretty hyped up for that. Speaking of hyped up and speaking of KU, how excited were you on Tuesday night to hear another Brown brother was coming to KU?
Oh, dude, it's awesome. I don't know how much Parker Brown is like. I think it's a good rotational piece to add to KU. It's a good big man rotational depth to the team. And if he's anything like his brother, I'm going to love him to death for his personality off the court.
We didn't get to talk about this because it happened just near the end of our show on Tuesday. It was right after Michael Swain joined us. So we'll talk more about it coming up next Tuesday on Jayhawk Weekly. Like, can he be Mitch Lightfoot? Like, that's all.
I think
can he play for 8 minutes and not do anything really stupid?
Like, yeah, if Hunter Dickinson picks up his second foul the first half with like 3:40 to go in the half, can he play those 3 minutes and 40 seconds and not cough up an 8-point lead?
I think so.
I think so.
I think it's what he can do. And that's, I'm all about, managing expectations, having the realistic expectations for players on teams. And that's what Parker's job is.
Yeah.
Just be a rotational big man to give us some minutes. And we like having the Brown brothers at KU. It's been good memories and good vibes.
I am not comparing Hunter Dickinson as a basketball player to Nikola Jokic. Do not get me wrong.
Okay.
But for the Denver Nuggets, Jokic is super important, obviously, and they just have to make sure that they don't capsize when he's not on the floor.
Mhm.
I feel like it's pretty similar scenario for KU, where like Dickens is going to play 35 minutes, 36 minutes a game. He's not going to play 40 though. So you just need those 5 minutes to
just
not be
pure
like
awful.
a 10-2 Baylor run when he's not on the floor.
Yeah.
Like you just need to not capsize. You need somebody to keep the boat afloat. And Parker Brown should be able to do that. He's a veteran.
So.
He's played a lot of college basketball.
Played a lot of college
Well,
basketball.
That matters.
KU's going to have more cover too, because while I know they want to move KJ more to the 4, he can play the 5. He played an entire season as a 5.
When in doubt, you could go smaller and play KJ at the 5. You could.
There's been a bizarre amount of like online message board, Twitter discourse about KU, and I've complained to you and to Michael before about like, why are people complaining about all the guys who transferred out? Like, I wanted to keep Ernest Uday. I thought he was good. We thought he was going to be a really good piece. And if he ends up at Duke or K-State or wherever, I think he's going to be a really good player. But like, why are we complaining about Zach Clements and Joe Yesufu and Bobby Pettiford and Kyle Cuff and all these guys transferring?
The guys that you were complaining about playing just last season.
Yeah, they were good.
Some guys
Everyone
who
was
didn't even
complaining.
play. Yeah,
Right.
Everyone was like, "Oh, KU's bench is totally awful and it's abysmal, and oh my goodness, every time we've got to go to the bench, it's terrible." Less than however many months later, when these guys transfer, oh my goodness, why are they transferring?
It's weird.
All of you just spent an entire season and complain about Joe Yesufu touching a basketball, and now all of you are all sitting up in arms that he's leaving. Like, make it make sense.
Very odd. I think it's been a great spring for KU.
It
Not
has.
that Brown is like a true needle mover in that way, but it's good depth. piece to
Adding
have.
Hunter Dickinson, adding Nate Timberlake, there are things they've done, and then your other guys coming in and members of the freshman class that I think could be somewhat contributors. They've done things to make themselves in a better position. And if your only complaint right now is what are they going to do for depth big, they still have spots open to go get a depth big in the portal still. And then more importantly, as we've noted, Hunter Dickinson's going to play about 35, 36 minutes a game, and he has a great track record of not getting into foul trouble.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're going like, oh, we need a guy to play 36 minutes a game, but he's also a guy who's a propensity to pick up some dumb fouls. That's not Hunter Dickinson.
No, KU's going to be just fine. I didn't love adding Arterio Morris, given what he's dealing with off the court, but
its own thing.
He's talented. I think El Marco is going to play a ton. KU's going to be just fine. It's been a great spring for KU overall. We'll talk some K-State coming up here in about half an hour, a little less than half an hour, with Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com. Speaking of good vibes, 2 wins, 2 series wins in the last 3 series for the Royals.
Yeah, it is.
Don't let them get hot.
Man, it's almost like somebody said, hey, give this team some time, and they're not going to be, Oakland A's bad all year. And while they're not going to be, elite or even 500, they're not going to be bottom of the cellar Cleveland Spiders bad. It's almost like somebody's been trying to say that and tell everyone out there to just take a breath. And look what happens.
In fairness, available evidence suggests
Dan.
Although their Pythag win-loss is 17-28.
Yes.
So
that's just regular bad.
Yeah.
But that was
garden variety.
Yeah,
sucky.
That's garden variety bad, not, horrible, let's burn the entire thing to the ground bad. And look, even going back as far to their sweep against the Brewers and when they lost all 3 of those games. Sure, we can say Friday wasn't competitive because Corbin Burns was rediscovering his stuff. And even though he couldn't buy a strike sometimes when he was in there, it was hard to hit. Those last 2 games of the series, yes, I know they lost 9-6 in the last game, and they had that implosion of an inning where Jordan Lyles gave up everything and walked the universe, and the Royals defense turned the equivalent of watching me when I was 10 years old out there. But overall, the series was still somewhat competitive. And then they go into a series against San Diego, a team with a lot of talent, but is incredibly underperforming, and they take it. The Royals are a team that are not good. They are bad. That is the proper word to describe them. But to act like they are one of the worst teams in the history of baseball, as I've quite literally been told by people on the internet, is just an inaccurate thing to say, in my opinion. And I'm personally feeling a little vindicated because it's not great, but it's not the seller that everyone tried to make it out to be.
Hang the banner. 1985 world champions, 2015 world champions, 2023, not as bad as Twitter's trying to tell me they are.
2023 won some fights on Twitter.
Brother, I got to take what I can get right now.
So since that 7-game losing streak in mid-April, when they got swept by the Braves, swept by the Rangers, and then dropped the first game against the Angels.
Were they 4-16 in their first 20? Was that what it was?
I believe that was the number.
Yes. Since that point, they are 10-15, which isn't good. That's 400 baseball.
Yeah.
You play 400 baseball over the course of a season,
you're losing a lot of games.
65 wins.
Not great.
But not 100 losses.
Not 100 losses. So,
and I know, and the guys at Royals Farm Report have been fighting the good fight more than I have about trying to really put into context what's happening with this team. The problem right now is 100% the pitching. That's the problem. And we all know that that's the problem. The thing is that I have said and stood by confidently, the pitching will not be this bad when the season ends because there will be more talented pitchers on this team. Because, yes, you are like Jordan Lyles is going to be on this team making starts until halfway through next year. At this point, just start a little countdown of days until he's DFA'd. You'll get to about halfway through next year. That's what you're going to have to deal with. Brad Keller might already be out of this rotation. Like, they're not committed to him starting on Sunday. Like,
so what do you do? Like, well, because we said that the other day after he walked 843 batters. Like, you can't keep putting that guy on the mound. No. But what do you do?
And that is the $1 million question. One piece of the solution is Daniel Lynch. And I know, like, and with all of this, it goes to, well, yeah, but because some of these guys don't have good track records, some of these guys have no track records. The point is, and I know everyone's tired of hearing it, this year is about figuring out what you have. This year is what last year should have been, but they screwed everything up last year. Like, last year was a waste. Like, last year was 162 games that amounted to almost nothing. And it happens, and it's brutal, and it stinks, but sometimes when your organization's poorly run. This year is figuring out what you got, which means, yeah, Daniel Lynch coming up is part of the solution because you need to see what can he do. Can this new pitching development team make him into something? He has the best individual stuff of any of these young pitchers the Royals have. Pure stuff, Daniel Lynch has the best. What does he do? That's one part of your potential solution. I went over this on Mic'd Up with Jake earlier this week. There are 6 guys in total that my question is going through this year, I think all could get a look. And can you get 3 of them to be 4 ERA guys? So nothing great, but just not atrocious. Brady Singer, Daniel Lynch, Austin Cox, Drew Parrish, Alec March, Anthony Venzano. 2 of those guys are AAA right now on Cox and Parrish, and we've seen Cox in the big leagues. I think he needs to get a look on, can he be a starter? Maybe he isn't, but maybe he is. He needs to get a look. Drew Parrish is nothing special, but he's been having a fine year at Omaha. Give him a look. Alec Marsh and Anthony Venzano in particular, who last year looked like, y'all thought like Brad Keller here is bad. Imagine Anthony Venzano at AA. He was worse last year. This year, his ERA is
encouraging.
This year, his ERA is under 2 through 8 starts. Like, and he was good, had one bad year. These are all guys, and there's a deeper, longer list of guys. The deeper you go, I think part of the solution when it comes to pitchers is just you're going to have to ride the wave with what you have till about June or July because you don't want to rush guys up from their minor league seasons too fast. But given about June or July, I think you just start running some dudes out, and that's your solution. It's just, yes, they might be as bad as Brad Keller. Maybe, Drew Parrish comes up and he also walks everybody, their mom, their dog, the bat boy, and every concession worker in the ballpark. Maybe he does. But he also might just be a little bit more tolerable. That gives you something.
It's a tough spot to be in when there was only a need for one pitcher in the rotation because, Yarbrough has a broken face. Like, okay, Daniel Lynch, slot in, you're fine.
Now you need 2.
Now you need 2. That's where the
and that's
legitimate rotation problem
and
is.
Jake and I
and really you need 3 because Jordan Lyles is still giving up 2.5 home runs per 9 innings.
You need 3. The problem is the Jordan Lyles thing is he's starting all this year. He's not getting taken out. As much as I would like him not to play. And as I will stop wasting my breath on Jordan Lyles things because the bad pitcher is playing bad. What new thing have I discovered?
Yeah, I mean, I get you
the
want
bad
him to
guy
eat
is
innings,
playing bad,
but it's rough.
It's rough and it stinks, and I hate it. The bad guy's playing bad.
Other than that, though.
Yeah, well, the bad guy is playing bad, and the bad guy has a 2-year contract, which means you can scream I can scream all I want into the void. Jordan Love's not going anywhere. So I'm going to redirect my energy to the spots where you can actually see different guys come up. A thing Jake kind of talked about, and I'm halfway on board with, is if it's bad enough, do you try to have Carlos Hernandez be an actual opener? Like, he made the Padres look silly in 2 innings. And he quietly, as I pointed out yesterday, he's had one bad start is why his ERA looks bad. Every start he had up until the 5-run horrendous outing where he couldn't get an out against Texas, ERA was about 2.4. Every start since that, ERA under 2. Yesterday made the Padres look like they didn't know what. They swung at every one of his split changes, missed every single one. Like,
yeah, quiet as this
that's another option.
Quiet as this kept, they've put together a pretty good bullpen.
They
mix.
have.
Like Clark and Hernandez and Barlow and Staumont and Chapman have all pitched really well, and to varying degrees. And you know, Chapman's been the best of the bunch. The best ERA of the bunch belongs to I guess it's still Chapman, but like the strikeout numbers are good. They're not walking the ballpark. Like there's some good things. Garrett hasn't been bad. Too many walks, but he hasn't been bad.
But he's always walked everybody as well.
Yeah, so the bullpen mix there has been pretty good. It's just, you know, starting pitching's got to be more competitive to make that matter, and that's where they've obviously been lacking when you get 2 guys with ERAs in the 7s and one guy who is got an ERA in the 5s, and then one guy who is Brad Keller. Like,
yeah, who somehow has the best ERA on this staff because he has been the luckiest man in the existence.
Because he's not giving up a ton of runs, but they're pulling him. Like,
Well,
yeah, he got pulled in 3 2/3 because he couldn't stop walking, dude.
It's that luck, and he's not getting hard hit. That is his luck right now.
Yeah.
And that's why I think you need to pull him is partly is the walks are just, you can't have a guy doing that because you're tempting so much fate. It will eventually get so bad. And Royals pitching is just, as I tried to make clear, it is so much just a talent problem, and that is brutal. Like, absolutely brutal that it is just a talent problem, but it's a talent problem that I think is marginally solvable by what guys can you run through as the rest of this year goes. And then if, in my opinion, if you can get out of what you have in house, number 3, number 4 starters, 3 guys with ERAs around like 4 to 4.5. All right, John Sherman, open your checkbook. Go get me 2, 3 ERA guys next year. Do it. You say you're going to spend when this team has a chance. You say you want a new ballpark. You say you want to be competitive. This is a lineup that can compete. This lineup can compete.
I don't think I'm willing to take that step. I don't think I'm willing to say that. Someday with this core, yeah, like a core of Witt and Pasquantino and
Melendez,
and definitely Prado. If Massey continues to look like this, I will be happy to say he can be a part of it. I don't know that I'm there yet. I think there's are you talking like long-term projections or are you talking as currently constructed?
There are 6 guys on this team. I think you already can pencil in 6 of these guys that could be a part of a core of a lineup that could compete. And if you get the right things around it, I think this is a lineup that if you put it together correctly, could find a way to compete.
With Vinny, Melendez.
You have Vinny, you have Melendez, you have Salvador Perez, who, as of now, I'm going to assume is going to age just fine because it's currently aging just fine.
Okay.
So Witt, MJ, Sal, Vinny, Nick Prado. You're going to pull that Michael Garcia can't be a productive hitter for my cold dead hands.
I should have put him first. I should. That's on me.
He's had exactly one slump, and even in that slump, his peripherals looked fine. He just couldn't buy a hit. He then proceeded to have the only multi-hit game yesterday with 3 for 4, including looking good against Yu Darvish outside of his first at-bat that notably wasn't good, and then proceeded to get good hits off of him in the next 2 at-bats.
I love the enthusiasm.
Yeah, I love that Fulton's a true believer. Like,
buddy, if I wasn't, it would be a not good place for me.
It would be very sad. Like,
it wouldn't be great.
Like, when you root for a really bad team, like, what do you have other than just being like, well,
you gotta find.
It could be good.
Do you know how many bad players I've talked myself into?
Right.
Yeah,
Dan
like
gets it.
in my life. Like,
Dan gets it.
It's part of it. It's part of the experience. You know, you watch enough of it, you see enough of it, you get good at sifting out the beauty, the glimmering bits in all of the nastiness, and you say to yourself, hey, I think this guy could be a pretty good ball player. And then you look up and his OPS plus is 50.
Yeah.
And I'm here to tell you, Fulton, as your older brother, it doesn't dissipate with age either. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If you're wired that way once, you're wired that way for all time.
I am very prepared to be 65 years old and still going like, well, they could be good next season. I'm prepared.
Tony Pena the fourth is really showing me something.
Oh my God, Tony Pena the fourth. You're not going to be here tomorrow, so I won't ask you what's coming up on Mic'd Up, but I'm sure Jake is going to have a great show. Fulton, we appreciate it. Make sure you're following Fulton on Twitter at FultonCaster if you're not already. Normally, he's on noon to 3 with Jake for Mic'd Up. We will talk to you soon. We'll see you next week.
See you guys next week.
That is Fulton Caster. With that, we're going to take another time out here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back after this break, we've got some What Is Wrong With You, and Tim Fitzgerald will join us later on this hour. It's all coming up on 580 WIBW.
What the hell?
Before we get to Tim Fitzgerald, it is time for What Is Wrong With You here on 580 Sports Talk, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply, who cuts the metal you need to your specifications, saving time, money, and material. Never settle when it comes to metal. That's Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. No show yesterday, so our champion reigns from Tuesday, and that's the DUI dog, a gentleman in southeast Colorado who was going to be stopped for a DUI. He had been drinking quite a bit in his truck, so he got pulled over, and then while the cop was getting ready to get out of his patrol car, the gentleman in the truck switched spots with his dog to get the dog in the driver's seat. And the cop came over, the guy ran out of the passenger side, and he was subsequently arrested. That's our current winner for the week. My story today, Dan, is going to take us down to Pinellas County, Florida, St. Petersburg specifically, where a couple was arrested after stolen tortoises and famous books were found in their home. Sounds kind of odd. Well, 2 endangered Galapagos tortoises, rare books, and rare comic books went missing from locations across Florida recently until Tuesday when a couple was arrested after police determined they had sold some of the items on eBay and kept other ones, including the Galapagos tortoises, at their home in St. Petersburg. 46-year-old Joshua McCarty Thomas was taken into custody after detectives served a search warrant at his home. They discovered, unfortunately, one of the tortoises had passed away. Those things are like living dinosaurs. They live forever. This one, unfortunately, did not. The other one was still kicking it, though. It was just chilling in the backyard, hanging out. They also, well, after they arrested his wife, Deshae McCarty Thomas, a 29-year-old co-defendant in the case, they found multiple rare books. They found rare comic books, all sorts of things they had stolen from all over in the state of Florida. Now, these tortoises they'd been microchipped, and the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission was able to find exactly where they were and were able to verify who they were. They have since been they were taken away from the St. Augustine Alligator Farm Zoological Park. How did they get Galapagos tortoises at some like roadside zoo? I'm confused.
Great question.
Each one is worth about $10,000. You know how you don't make any money on those? Just having them live in your backyard. I don't understand that at all. Apparently they were part of some sort of captive breeding program, but I thought the entire point of the amazing thing about the Galapagos tortoises is they live on the Galapagos Islands and no one touches them and they live forever. I don't understand. They can grow up to 600 pounds and they can live for over 150 years, by the way. 2 other St. Petersburg businesses had been burglarized. Haslam's bookstore, as well as Lighthouse Books. Thousands of dollars worth of rare books were stolen both times by this couple.
And then they turn around and they try to sell it on eBay like they're not going to get caught?
Yeah, there's the funny thing about this. I would think that if you were selling rare books, rare comics, rare animals, there's a market for that. Like there's a specific clientele you are trying to sell them to who will pay you what they are worth.
Many times there's like a community around that kind of stuff.
Right. Not Joe Schmo on eBay.
Yeah, this isn't like, oh, I am selling my limited edition Kevin Seitzer trading cards from 1995. No, like you're selling really rare stuff.
Used PlayStation 2, still works, missing HDMI cord, comes with 4 games. They're all SSX tricky. Like that's what I'm looking for on eBay. Not, I'm going to buy a Galapagos tortoise that you stole from a zoo. I would have issues with this. These people not very bright. You could easily not leave a paper trail and they just decided, well, what about eBay? Idiots. That's my story for today.
Yeah, that's wild. That's absolutely wild. They just love to steal stuff and love to try and profit off of it. For my story, we're going to Minneapolis. We meet Derek Lee Lind, who is 20 years old. Derek Lee Lind, like many Americans, is a gun owner. And like many of those gun owners, he has multiple guns. He had some guns with him on his person. He was driving his car. Mm-hmm. And he had 2 guns in a bag. They were both loaded. Had one in the chamber, like ready to rock and roll with these guns. And they're sitting in his car. But his car doesn't lock. So he's afraid that when he gets out of his car, somebody's going to steal his guns. So he says, well, I'll just take my guns to work. Which, at some vocations, that would not be a problem. But when you work at a school, it is not a smart move. And that is why Hennepin County prosecutors have charged Lind with possession of a dangerous weapon on school property, negligent storage of loaded firearms, and carrying a firearm in a public place without a permit. According to court records, Minneapolis police responded to a call April 23rd at Loring Elementary School after a student found a bag left on a table with 2 guns inside. One of the handguns was reportedly stolen, and the other had an auto sear switch attached to it. Both guns were loaded with a round in the chamber. Investigators looked at the school surveillance videos, which showed Lind getting out of his car with a black bag that matched the one left inside the school. He was seen walking around the school with the bag around his shoulder. He was not near the bag when the student found it. He acknowledged, allegedly, to a staff member that the bag was his, and he didn't want to leave it in the car because it didn't lock. The staff member told Lind he needed to leave because he wasn't allowed to bring guns into the school, and he became upset and, quote, trashed the room before exiting the school.
Very normal guy.
He was charged via warrant, now in custody at the Hennepin County Jail, and is scheduled to make his first court appearance next Tuesday.
Okay, so you've got your gun. Fine. So be it. Guns, so be it. Why do you need the gun loaded at an elementary school?
Like, just driving around with those loaded guns on you. Like, if you know you're going to school, perhaps leave them at home. Perhaps don't take them with you to work. Don't have them with you in your car. You can take them out of your car and, I don't know, put them under your mattress. Put them in a safe. Put them underneath your underwear in your dresser drawer. If you know you are driving to school and your car doesn't lock and you're afraid to keep valuables in your car, which I totally get, like, you gotta think a few moves ahead, bud.
This is really dumb. This guy is an idiot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also a child.
Yeah.
Emotionally, at the very least. Also, he's only 20. He really is a child.
Yeah.
What was he doing at this school?
They must be hard up for Paris, which would put that school on level playing field with every other school.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, who's your winner today?
I got to go with dummy gun guy bringing the guns to school. Can't do it.
The children, man. Come on. And they're loaded. Yeah, that's the pick for today.
Described as drop dead stupid by a texter on 785, which is pretty good.
That is pretty good. Does that beat the DUI dog?
No.
That's one of my favorite names for a story we've ever had. The DUI dog, that gets my vote as well today in What Is Wrong With You. With that, let's get to a break. Tim Fitzgerald's up next on 580 Sports Talk.
The Cats are coming to the
Wildcat. It's a big Kansas State victory.
It's a big K-State victory when Tim Fitzgerald joins us here on 580 Sports Talk. A day later than normal. The Royals ate up our whole show yesterday, so Fitz joining us a day later than usual for the Invista Credit Union High School Whip Round. Go check out all of Fitz's work at GoPowerCat.com. Him and the rest of his crew, the best coverage of all things K-State athletics. And, of course, go follow him on Twitter as well, at Life of Fitz. What's going on, Fitz? How are you?
I'm good. Just got back from Kansas City. Another doctor's appointment, but I'm back home.
Well, glad to hear that. Hopefully that means a little relaxation is in your future. Wanted to start off on the football side of things with K-State today, Fitz. We already knew this was coming because it had been reported a week or more ago by ESPN, among other places, but it was made official on Monday. Chris Kleiman, a new 8-year contract at K-State. It keeps him tied to Manhattan through 2030, $5.5 million a year. Did anything in that new contract surprise you? Did it stand out to you, at least what we know about it so far?
Some of the buyout stuff stood out to me. The buyout's at $6 million. After 3 years of the contract, it drops to $3 million. Now, let me be clear. This isn't going to be an 8-year contract. If after 3 years, Chris Kleiman still has this team clicking along, this program is contending for the Big 12 title and playing in significant bowl games, he's probably going to get another raise because the market will demand that. So that part of the buyout is, maybe a little early on the dropping of that number, but I'm okay with it. The one that probably is sneaking by some fans that jumped out at me and some of my buddies was that if Gene Taylor leaves or President Richard Linton leaves, it drops to $1 million. So, I see this as a sign of how closely tied Chris Kleiman and Gene Taylor are. Naturally, he brought him here from North Dakota State. They're really good friends. So if Gene Taylor would retire in a couple years or maybe even get another job, Chris Kleiman would be freed up to leave with only $1 million buyout. And that might alarm some fans.
I think for me personally, Fitz, you can spin that a couple different ways. One, I did not know the president would be involved like that. I think that's good to have everybody kind of on the same page, on the same plane, have them all that tied together and that in sync. But I think you could possibly, and you can tell me if I'm wrong here, but you could spin that as we don't see any reason why Gene Taylor would leave unless it's, an offer he can't refuse. And if that's the case, it's hard for me to see a clear example of why Kleiman would leave as well.
Yeah. If Gene Taylor retires and sticks around, I think that's one thing. If he becomes the AD at the University of Iowa, that's a whole other problem.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm with you. I thought it was interesting that the new president was included in that because he came in post-hiring of Kleiman. And I think that's a good indication of how well liked he is by the coaches and how well plugged he is to athletics and the role of it, that he'd be worried if someone else came in and didn't endorse athletics the same way.
The fine folks over at CBS Sports College Football, I know Tom Fernelli among them, and I know CBS, a sister site of you guys over at 24/7 and Go PowerCat, they put out their ranking, I believe it was earlier this week, of the top 25 Power 5 football coaches. So not all of Division I, but among the Power 5. They had Chris Kleiman coming in 12th. And I think on one hand, that's pretty fair. I think on the other hand, you look at some of the names ahead of him, and if you said to me, who is a better football coach, James Franklin or Chris Kleiman, and then you answered with James Franklin, I'd probably laugh at you. So I will ask you, Fitz, do you think that's about a fair ranking for Kleiman?
I think 12's fair. I would question if Franklin's ahead of him, who else is? Maybe he belongs higher, but, I think being 12 in the country right now is pretty fair, but look, I like James Franklin. He's done a good job, but he's also at Penn State. And he did a nice job picking up the pieces, but they've started to flounder a little bit. And, they're just not quite where they were at some points under him. And, that inconsistency's got to be a concern.
Our guest is Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline, as he does weekly for the Azure Credit Union Wildcat Wrap-Up here on 580 Sports Talk. Fitz, the publisher, GoPowerCat.com. See his work there. Follow him on Twitter at Life of Fitz. Raises for the coordinators, for the coaching staff around Kleiman, also kind of built into this deal. There's a higher pool for paying those assistant coaches. Do you view the current staff, particularly the coordinators, the higher end assistants on this current K-State staff, as one that they're going to be able to keep in Manhattan for a while?
No, they need to. I mean, let's be honest. They were able to fend off Notre Dame for Colin Klein. I think eventually people will come for Joe Klanderman. He's got a lot of loyalty to Chris Kleiman. I know they're going to come for Connor Riley, an offensive line coach, if K-State continues to have the success running the ball. And there's other great coaches on the staff. So, yeah, I mean, you have to be concerned. I just absolutely love Van Malone. I hope he leaves because I think his next step is to be a head coach, and he deserves that. But, yeah, this is the right group. They've got them put together. They need to kind of see how long they can keep them together and what kind of damage they can do.
Kind of one of those good problems, isn't it, Fitz? If you've got other schools that want your coordinators or want to promote them to a head coach spot or want to make one of your position coaches a coordinator, that means you're doing something right, developing coaches.
Yeah, but inevitably it happens where you start getting rated quite a bit. It went down with Bill Snyder. And then it really becomes incumbent on the head coach to be able to recruit and coach other coaches and bring them in. He's dealt mostly with the people that he's been around for the most part, but he did a good job putting together the staff. That is always the test. We're watching it happen with Baylor basketball right now, where Scott Drew's getting his coaches kind of blood off, and let's see if he can sustain it for the long run with different coaches. It's just a natural part of the process.
You mentioned basketball, and I want to shift gears over there. There was some interesting transfer portal news we got into a little bit earlier this week that former Kansas center Ernest Uday was looking into taking a visit to Kansas State. Now, he's also got Duke on his list, and a lot of the scuttlebutt suggests that might be the direction that Ernest Uday is leaning. But even if it's not Uday, is that kind of the type of big man that Kansas is looking for right now? Kansas State, rather, is looking for in the transfer portal right now.
Yeah, exactly. Really athletic. Maybe a better rim defender than what they had last year. Still can score. I think he really does fit what they want. But, I would be surprised if he doesn't end up at Duke, even though Duke seems like they're full on scholarships. He's probably a guy they'd make room for.
We're talking to Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com. It's the Azura Credit Union Wildcat wrap-up here on 580 Sports Talk. Fitz joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. You can find him on Twitter at Life of Fitz. And, of course, he and his whole crew covering K-State better than anybody over at GoPowerCat.com. We remember pretty vividly, Fitz, from last year that the final piece of the puzzle, getting Keontae Johnson, that happened late. If that wasn't August, I think it was July or very late June. I mean, it was pretty deep into the summer when Keontae ended up committing, because it was a whole saga during the offseason in the transfer portal with Jerome Tang's first year. Right now, the NBA draft combine is going on. A bunch of guys who aren't going to get promises or feel like they can improve their stock or whatever it might be are going to end up returning to school, many of whom have entered the transfer portal. Do you feel like these next few days and the decisions some of those guys make in Chicago could impact what K-State's plan is to fill out the rest of this roster?
Absolutely. And, there's probably a lot of schools out there that are kind of on hold with guys that are in the portal, but not, at the NBA level, because they want to see who comes out of the NBA camps and says, I'm going back to college. I've been in the portal. Let's see what's out there. So I think the whole process is kind of slowed down right now, but yeah, I think they're banking on some guys that went in late or, are coming back out of the NBA investigation to see if they want to be, if they're going to be drafted. And if not, they might head to Kansas State. We'll see. Yeah, you're right. They went into the late summer with adding players and even didn't get Desi Sills locked up until September or even October last year.
That's right.
So this has been a really patient staff.
I know your guy, Ryan Gilbert, has been all over this, and his portal updates have been phenomenal. And this is why we always tell you, if you're not a 24/7 Sports VIP subscriber, go do it. It is absolutely worth it. And over at Go PowerCat, Ryan Gilbert, all over the transfer portal stuff. Are there any names in particular that you guys are hearing or that are just, big enough names that K-State will almost certainly be interested, assuming they do come back to school, or maybe didn't even enter the draft, but they're just still out there fiddling around in the portal?
I gotta be honest. I don't have the list in front of me, and I just walked back in the house. Yeah, there are some guys out there that are sniffing around, going to visits to different schools, and they're being finicky. They're not just going to take a dude. Jerome Tang made it very clear. We already talked about what they want a big man, but they want another experienced guard. So they're trying to find that, and they've got a couple scholarships laying around to go for some younger talent. So they've got a lot of flexibility right now with what they can get out of the portal. If they can find the right guy.
Last couple of questions we've got for you today, Fitz. Number one, wanted to ask you about the baseball team a little bit. We've actually got some K-State baseball coming up tonight here on our airwaves on 580 WIBW. How's the outlook looking postseason-wise for K-State? I know the RPI is bad. I know you guys have had a lot of coverage of this. I know Cole Carmody over there at Go Power Cat, big with the baseball program. How is the outlook postseason-wise for K-State right now?
Well, there's something to feel like this weekend series that starts tonight. The last weekend of the season starts a day early. Feels like one win over TCU will get them in. I kind of think the winner of this series, whoever gets 2 or more wins out of this series, will be in, because both these teams are very similar on the bubble, fighting for the upper part of this conference. K-State's tied for third, so if they can win 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 3, certainly they're going to stay in that top 3 positioning in this conference, and I think that says a lot. I think the NCAA would really have a hard time saying no. The third place team in the Big 12 is out because of what they did early in the year, when they clearly are playing at a higher level now.
I saw some chatter earlier this season before K-State got really hot about midway through the year about how this felt sort of like a you have to make it in kind of year for head coach Pete Hughes. I do not know that for certain. I'm not huge in the college baseball scene. I know our listeners know that. But does that sort of feel like what this year is for K-State? Does it feel like a, hey, what, or get off the pot kind of moment for the program as it currently sits?
Yeah, a little bit. I don't know if that's actually true. Gene Taylor's typically really patient with his quote Olympic sport coaches. Don't make a fool of the program. Don't lose its money. The bar's not real high, to be blunt. Be competitive as you can, and maybe you'll rise up and have those moments. And I was astonished, just kind of time has slid by, that K-State baseball won the Big 12 in 2013, went to the NCAA tournament, and haven't been back since.
Wow.
So getting back to the tournament would be a big step for the program.
Last thing we've got for you, Fitz. How was school day at the K?
It wasn't that bad. The rain kind of, lessened the screaming. My buddy bought us tickets that had access to the Diamond Club.
Ooh.
So we were protected, and I had vodka. And if I'm not getting rained upon and I have vodka, I'm generally a pretty happy guy. I got to see a walk-off suicide squeeze, which I'd never seen before.
Nah, it's like seeing a double rainbow after the rain. How about that? Tim Fitzgerald covers all things K-State and is the publisher of GoPowerCat.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Again, if you're not a VIP, it is absolutely worth it. All sorts of insight you're not going to get anywhere else than the crew at GoPowerCat.com. You can find Fitz on Twitter as well, at Life of Fitz, and he joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline, usually every Wednesday, but this week on Thursday for the Azure Credit Union Wildcat Wrap-Up. Fitz, we appreciate you being flexible with the schedule with us. Glad you enjoyed the K last week, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you, boys. Great to talk to you.
That is Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com. Yeah, that list, by the way, of the top coaches in college football, this is a very off-season kind of topic. Lincoln Riley was in the top 10. Lincoln Riley is something of an offensive genius, I think. I mean, he puts up crazy numbers. His recruiting is absurd.
His quarterbacks win the Heisman Trophy every year.
Part of coaching is hiring the right people to coach with you.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who's killed that. Chris Kleiman. Hell, when what was his name who left?
The defensive coordinator. Yeah. Oh, beard guy went to Wyoming. Scotty Hazelton.
Scotty Hazelton left. K-State got better. Clanderman's a better defensive coordinator than Hazelton.
I apologize to Scotty Hazelton.
Yeah, well, hey, he's moved up too. He's at Michigan State now.
Yeah.
And I mean, Colin Klein's obviously been a 100% home run. Lincoln Riley cannot hire a defensive coordinator or defensive position coaches. He can't do it, or he just refuses to. Like that, to me, that should get you bumped down. It really should. Also, give me Kleiman over James Franklin, too, like I said. We've got to get to the top of the hour news break. We'll come back. We've got headlines in a shortened 5 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. hour to go on 580 Sports Talk. We're off a little bit early today, 5:30 finishing up time, because we've got some K-State baseball to get to against TCU. 5:30 start time for that game. Broadcast start time anyway, 6 o'clock first pitch. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you, though, for the next half hour to wrap up 580 Sports Talk. Thank you so much for being a part of the show with us today and every day. We're still taking your texts. 785-272-9429 is the text line number, and you can hop into the YouTube comment section as well. The name of our YouTube channel, where you can find the live stream, Sports on 580 WIBW. We don't have a whole lot of time, so let's just dive right into today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. First one for me, another local college player has found a professional home, and it's north of the border. J.J. Letcher from Washburn, Kansas City, Kansas, Piper High product. Washburn great and one of the best players in Washburn football history. He has signed with the Montreal Alouettes of the Eastern Division of the Canadian Football League.
Thank you for saying it in English after you said it in French.
Yeah. I'm going to roll the R before we get to that. But no, JJ headed up to Montreal. I know Jake had mentioned to me a while back before the draft. In fact, he said, yeah, he's going to wait the process out, but he's heard a lot from some of the teams in Canada. Montreal trying to turn things around. They have had some down years, but that's a great fit for JJ. He's going to kill it in Canada with the wide open kind of game they play. All you need to do is get him the ball in space, and he can be a superstar in the CFL. He'll return kicks, he'll return punts. He should be a slot back up there. He's going to be a stud. So that is another local player who ends up going to a professional team.
Congratulations to JJ, and hope things work out really well for him in Canada. I think he could have a very good pro career. His skill set is legitimate, and his speed is for real, and he can help you on special teams as a return man, and would love to see him get a legit shot and have himself a career, whether it's in Canada or whether he uses that as a stepping stone elsewhere. Rooting for JJ. What an exciting player to watch at Washburn.
Thrilling. The Alouettes, in fact, shared a clip of him when they announced his signing yesterday with Jake Laban on the call. So Alouettes fans all over, Montreal and the world got to hear Jake call a crazy J.J. Letcher touchdown run.
That is extremely cool.
Yeah.
First headline for me today marks the start of the 2023 PGA Championship. The world's best golfers convening at the Oak Hill Country Club in Rochester, New York, on a day that was delayed due to frost by about an hour and change.
Wow.
It gets chilly in upstate New York in May. Who'd have
Yes,
thunk it? Play underway in round number 1, and as expected, it has been a tough day. As I'm speaking to you, only 19 players are below par for their rounds, and only 7 players are in the house with rounds in the 60s at this par 70 course. Leading the field, the big golfer, Bryson DeChambeau.
Where is Bryson DeChambeau?
Well, that has been a good question. Not at the top of leaderboards, not at majors, not in live golf tournaments where he currently plies his trade professionally. It's been a long, long time since the 2020 U.S. Open champion has really been relevant in the golf world. He's lost a lot of weight in the interim. He's changed his diet to slim down. So he's the less big golfer than he used to be, but he can still hit it really far. And that is an advantage at Oak Hill. And today that leaves him as the solo leader in the clubhouse after round 1 with a first round 4 under par 66. Scotty Scheffler and Corey Connors each at 67, 3 under par, 1 shot back. A group at 2 under, including Ryan Fox, Victor Hovland, and Keegan Bradley, with Sepp Straka and Adam Scott on the course currently at 2 under par. Justin Sue is in at 69, 1 shot under par. There's a large group of players tied for 9th, and then you get to the players at even par. Gary Woodland, professional sports franchise of Topeka, Kansas, struggled early, fought back to finish with a 3 over par 73. That is tied for 75th. Huge group of players at +1, +2. And again, a lot of players still out on the course. I think the last group of the day is on or through 5 holes right now. We did not give any picks betting wise for this tournament like we did the Masters last month. I gave them on Twitter. I sincerely hope you did not listen to me. Gary Woodland. So here's how I bet this year's PGA Championship. So I bet Joaquin Niemann would be the top live golfer. He's +4, done for the day. I bet Gary Woodland to finish in the top 20. He is outside the projected cut at +3. I bet Sungjae Im to finish in the top 10, +4 for Sungjae through 9. I bet Tony Finau to finish in the top 5, +6 through 9. And I bet John Rahm to win the whole thing, +6. Nobody I bet on is going to make the weekend.
Silver lining. You're going to break even between the two majors.
Well, more than break even. I won a lot of money on the Masters.
Yeah, that's true.
So was not in as heavy as my winnings from the Masters. But that's golf gambling for you, I suppose. It's quite a roller coaster. Anyhow, that is your outlook. The big golfer, Bryson DeChambeau, your current leader at Oak Hill.
Next headline for me on today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. Let's go to, where do we want to go with this next one? Let's go to a big story that broke yesterday, late afternoon yesterday, from college basketball and the transfer portal. Former North Carolina guard Caleb Love left North Carolina this offseason, was a fairly hot name. I know some KU fans said, ooh, what about KU? Need a shooter. Caleb Love had one of the least efficient seasons by a full-time starter in college basketball history this past year. He ends up going to Michigan. Michigan really needed some new talent, and Missouri was one of his other finalists. So he commits to Michigan, but it was determined yesterday, maybe a little bit earlier, but it was announced yesterday, that he has decommitted from Michigan and reopened his recruitment. The reason why is Michigan would not take his transfer credits from North Carolina. This has been a legitimate problem for Michigan athletics in the past, basketball and football. It is very hard for them to take transfers because the actual school, the University of Michigan, super stringent about what transfers from other public or private universities.
A lot of times when they get transfers, they're either graduate transfers or they are transfers from. So, and I would butcher his name, but the kid who won the Remington Trophy last year, the top center in the country, got drafted by the Seahawks.
Schmidt. Was it Schmidt?
No.
No.
I'm going to get his name so wrong. Even when I look it up. Olu Oluwatimi.
Yeah.
Olu Oluwatimi. He transfers from Virginia, which pretty good academics there. So that typically has kind of been the way it worked. Either you've already got a degree or you're attending an institution of really fine higher learning, which Michigan is. And their standards are pretty high and pretty rigid in that front. And it is, the kind of thing you don't think about until it costs you a player that Juwan Howard really needs to save his job.
They're going to suck. They've got nothing. Howard's kid, Jet, one and done. He's going to the NBA draft, possibly a late first-round pick. Hunter Dickinson, obviously, he's going to KU. Caleb Love was going to get 40 shots a game. Caleb just go score. That was going to be Michigan's offense. Well,
let it rip.
Pretty much Michigan's offense already last year. He's no longer going to end up there. So Michigan is going to be terrible. I saw a lot of, he's not smart enough, whatever, Michigan's better school than North Carolina. No, the University of Michigan is just really hard to transfer into. That's just how it is. So now Love reopening his recruitment. As I mentioned, the other finalist to get him was Missouri. They are certainly a possibility, but a lot has changed in the transfer portal. Love was one of the first big names to commit during this transfer cycle. Other teams have openings now. Other teams have needs. Things have been filled. Teams might just say, we're just going to take the most talented player available. Screw fit. We'll figure that out later. Who's to say? I can say this, though. If Caleb Love commits to Missouri and we get a Caleb Love and Caleb Grill starting backcourt for the Missouri Tigers, they might be the least watchable team in America. Between Caleb Grill hunting for fouls and not playing real basketball way too often, and Caleb Love with the efficiency shooting the ball of like a stormtrooper in a Star Wars movie, that might be unwatchable. Truly, truly unwatchable. So some more major portal news. No other major commitments out of the portal today. In fact, none really over the last couple of days. The next wave of transfer portal news is going to come once the NBA draft combine is over. We talked about that a little bit earlier with Tim Fitzgerald in the Azure Credit Union Wildcat wrap-up. That once the combine is over, some guys decide to return to school, then we'll have some news. And I actually am going to correct myself. We had a former Kansas Jayhawk find a transfer destination today.
Kyle Cuff, yes.
Kyle Cuff is headed to Syracuse. First things first, good for him. I did not expect a high major team to pick him up. So good for Kyle Cuff. Happy for him. He's from New York. Gets to go back closer to home.
Yeah.
Awesome for him.
And that might be more important than a playing time opportunity.
It very well could be. I mean, he was going to stay at Kansas essentially knowing that he wasn't going to play. So you might be 100% on with that. I saw some responses, and this is the time of year. It's like spring training for baseball. Best shape of your life. Oh, the pitching looks great. Offense is cooking already. Wonderful. Everything is great. You want to be positive. You want to be excited about it. It's our training camp for the NFL. Everything is all great. I saw a lot of Syracuse fans. Oh, man. Coach Autry, first year, he's cooking. Look at this. We got a national champion. Well, I might slow my roll a little bit before I say something like that. I might look at the numbers and look at the fact that he played like 5 minutes in 2 years. But good for Kyle Cuff. Happy for him.
Absolutely.
Seems like a good kid. And he is going to end up playing for Syracuse. So there is your big transfer news for the last 24 hours.
Next headline for me, let's get into today's edition of the
Playoffs?
Roundup. It's the Playoff Roundup. It is everybody's favorite segment within a segment, which we look at what's happening on Frozen Pond and on the hardwood, the NHL and the NBA playoffs. The NHL playoffs resume tonight after a little bit of a hiatus. The Eastern Conference Finals get going tonight. The sunniest Eastern Conference Finals there have ever been as the Carolina Hurricanes play host to the Florida Panthers in game one of their series. I think we're on record already. I've got the Canes. You're going with the Panthers.
Yep.
So those are the official 5A Sports Talk We Know Puck picks for the NHL. In the NBA last night, the Miami Heat couldn't miss, and now the Boston Celtics are 4-4 at home in these playoffs after the Heat defeated the Celtics in game one of the Eastern Conference Finals. The 8-seed Heat take game one on the road for the third consecutive series. After the game, Boston head coach Joe Mazzulla correctly pointed out that his team won 3 of the 4 quarters, which begs a lot of questions about what the hell happened in the third quarter when the Heat scored 45 points.
Yep.
This is the reason that one of the either or over under questions earlier on the program had to do with, would you rather have the talent edge or the coaching edge? Eric Spoelstra, one of the great NBA coaches.
Yeah.
Let's give him the credit where it's due. I think he got, maybe overlooked because he had LeBron, and that's a huge advantage to have. But
definitely
great coach. And he's had a number 1 seed with basically this same roster except plus Kevin Love and without the injured Tyler Hero. Last year, they were the 1 seed, and they took Boston to game 7 before they lost the Eastern Conference Finals. So this team probably a little better than an 8 seed. But again, they don't have their best 3-point shooter. And they weren't a good 3-point shooting team in the regular season. In fact, they were 27th out of 30 teams in the league in 3-point percentage. But in these playoffs, they can't miss. It is remarkable what is going on with Miami. They lock in for 48 minutes. Yeah. They play hard as hell. They're tough.
It looks miserable to play them. Like if Boston, and there were more points scored in that game than I expected there to be honest with you. Probably because both teams were shooting at such a high clip. But Miami is nasty. Not in a dirty way, but I compared it earlier today. We were just chatting about the playoffs in the office, and I said, it's like what we said about Texas Tech football last year. Like, it's just unpleasant to have to go and play that team. That's what playing the Miami Heat looks like. And they've got a dog as their leader in Jimmy Butler, who also seems like no fun to play against. Because when we talked about this joke a couple weeks ago when the playoffs started, for 4 months of the season, you wonder, does this guy even like basketball? Then he turns it on, and then he becomes Michael Jordan in the postseason. It's unbelievable. I want the Nuggets to win it all for your sake.
Thank you.
And they're a very likable team. It'd be cool to see Jokic win one. I love Jamal Murray, Christian Brown. Love those guys. I really want to see Jimmy Butler someday win a championship. I think it would be a great culmination of one of the true underdog superstar stories. I guess Jokic just won too. I mean, he was drafted during a Quesarito commercial. But Jimmy Butler, totally overlooked, barely played his rookie year, was a junior college kid before he went to Marquette. as close to a self-made man in the NBA as you can get. I don't know how to judge that series. Like, the coaching advantage is way in Miami's favor.
Significant in Miami's favor. But, like,
do we want to bring up the Joe Mazzulla thing?
Like, he says he watches The Town.
The Ben Affleck movie.
4 nights a week? That's a 2-hour-long movie.
That's like a psychological problem. Like, do you have a doctor who's, like, helping you through something? That seems like an issue.
I think The Town is a very good movie.
Yeah.
In fact, I would even call it an excellent movie. I think it's terrific. I think Ben Affleck is really good in it. John Hamm is great in it. It's authentically Boston, like it is. It's a great movie.
Do you need to watch it 4 times a week?
4 times a week? That is insanity. Like, maybe watch some game film. Watch
some tape.
Little tape, so you don't let Max Struss rain fire on your head and blow a chance at going to win an NBA championship.
Why don't you get in the lab, Joe?
Jeez, unbelievable. Yeah, it's like the Heat keep doing this, and it feels like they can't keep doing it. But man, they are relentless, and they are shooting. It feels like way above their heads. And at some point, you do it for long enough, it's who you are. And maybe this is who the Heat are. Maybe we got to start looking at the seed next to their name and just like, this is how they're playing right now with this mix of guys. So all the credit in the world to them. But Boston did lose game 1 at home to Philadelphia and came back to win that series in 7. So I'm sure not too much panic in Boston. Tonight, game 2 of the Western Conference Finals, the Denver Nuggets seeking a 2-0 series lead over the Los Angeles Lakers after they took game 1 on Tuesday.
Any worries after that first game?
No.
Okay.
Not particularly. The thing that nobody's talking about going into this game is that LeBron and AD each played 40 minutes and Austin Reeves in game 1. And now they got to come back after one night's rest and do it again at altitude and play that well. And I don't know if they have that in them. I don't, what the Lakers were able to do in their first 2 series, which they won both of those series, was they won game 1 on the road. They beat Memphis game 1 on the road, and they won game 1 on the road against the Warriors as well. And then they got smoked in game 2. Like they coasted in game 2 of those series because they said, well, we did what we came to do. We can throw it in cruise control. We got one on the road. They haven't lost at home since March, so they feel like we're going to win our home games, but we got the one we need to get. Now we can pull back the reins and kind of relax a little bit and then turn it back on again for games 3 and 4 because LeBron is LeBron. He's kind of load managing himself within games. He's got the bad foot. So there's only but so long he can play at a super high level.
Yeah.
He's got to play at a pretty high level tonight. Otherwise they're going to go home down 2-0. So we'll see if they have that in them. I think Denver has a big advantage. And if they play well, then they should win the game and they should win the series.
5.5. Take that.
Yes, I would. They won the first one by 6. This one feels about the same.
Yeah, I would probably take it too. They're clearly the better team.
Bet the under tonight, though. It's not going to be 132, 126 again.
No,
be a lower scoring, fewer possession game, but Denver will figure out the Lakers on defense.
I would agree with that. We've got to get to one final timeout here on 580 Sports Talk. We will come back after this, and we'll finish things up on the shortened edition of the show with a final word.
Tickets are now available to win the Topeka St. Jude
up 580 Sports Talk with a quick final word. We're off early today due to K-State baseball. Coverage of the Batcats begins here in just a moment. We'll be back with a full show coming up tomorrow from 3 until 6. Matt Derrick is going to stop by to talk all things Chiefs. We've got an incredible story about Chili's at a wedding that we have to get to on tomorrow's show. Tell you what's on tap for the weekend and more. That's all coming up Friday on 580 Sports Talk. But right now, Dan, a final word.
Final word for me is enjoy K-State baseball tonight because this is a big one. It's a big game. It's a big series for Kansas State. The regular season finale series at Toynton Family Stadium against TCU. K-State wins the series. They're going to feel really good on Selection Day about making the NCAA tournament, and that would be a big deal.
Final word for me is that if you are looking forward to seeing some of the guys who might be drafted by the NBA coming up a little bit later on this summer, or maybe want to scout some guys who are going to return to college and maybe you want your favorite team, KU or K-State, to go after, scrimmages going on right now on ESPN2 from the NBA Draft Combine. Jalen Wilson about to participate. Kevin McCullough's scrimmage just wrapped up as well. That does it for a shortened edition of 580 Sports Talk today. If you missed any of the show, go head to our website, 580wibw.com, hover over the podcasts tab, and then click on 580 Sports Talk. That's where you'll find the hour-by-hour broken-down edition of the show, or you can head to our YouTube channel, Sports on 580 WIBW, and check out our whole catalog of shows. We're back tomorrow for a full Friday show at 3 o'clock. Until then, for Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. We'll talk to you Friday on 580 Sports Talk.